Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Hayley. You, in our conversation before we pushed record, you had exuberance in your voice about how well you're doing, and I'm anxious to. I mean, the question that I came with me today and sat down to ask you is going back to our theme, right? Are you happy without the movie? The question boils down to what constitutes success for you, right? If you
Great
keep
question.
chasing a goal line that moves, you're never going to be satisfied.
Right.
So tell me about your joy.
I think, to answer that question, what defines my success, it's always how I feel. My ultimate motivation is to be in peace.
Mm,
So whenever I'm not in peace, I know I need to adjust. And whenever I'm in peace, I know I need to stay.
okay, that's great. I don't
Mhm.
have that as my criteria, but I envy it.
I think it's not been an easy journey. There's been many
Yeah.
moments where you sort of like in the transition from success means how much I have in terms of material and how much money is in the bank, to transition that into the way that I feel is the most important thing and is the only way I define success right now. It has been a journey. It has been many moments of falling to my knees, many moments of questioning, am I doing the right thing? Or do I need to check into a mental health facility?
Mm.
Also, many people don't understand that that's an acceptable definition of success.
Hmm.
There are many people that do feel that just on how you feel is laziness, or you've given up, or you've gone off the grid. Um,
Uh,
so it's tough to kind of try and speak about it and not take on everybody else's opinions on what success should be. Um,
and Hayley, all the talk that we've done about being in the moment, right, is about being aware through your senses of what's going on.
Indeed.
And it's absent drama and thought. So, what you aspire to is exactly what we've described as being in the moment.
Yeah. Being in the moment. And for me, that is my success because whenever I am in the moment, whenever I am in peace, everything works perfectly.
Well, okay, let me push a little on that. So you're in the moment, you're at peace, and something really tragic happens, and you need to respond quickly, right? Uh, does that take you out of your peace?
Yeah. Whether it's tragic or whether it's something that triggers me, it takes me out of my peace.
Yeah, if you're in a car and the car ahead of you gets in a really bad accident, you jump out to see what you can do. You call 911, right? Or whatever they call in Mexico. Um,
Also 911 here, just so you know.
oh, isn't that great? I marvel at how things around the world are the same, like singing
It's
happy
different
birthday.
in different countries.
Yeah.
Europe has different systems, but definitely in Mexico, it's 911 too.
Okay, so you're seeing in front of you something that really tears at your soul. Children, you call, but then you jump in to the best of your ability to rescue, right? That's trauma. Can you hold your peace in that instance?
I think there's a level of trusting there that you are doing the right thing. Um, are you fully present? I don't know. I think you're fully in your intuition and you're moving in a way that it does not require conscious thought of am I present? We have to
Great.
trust in that.
Well,
Um,
and what you bring to the moment, Hayley, what you bring to those people who are needing assistance or just having a hand held as they pass on is you bring all this work that you've done on
you
yourself.
bring all the work, but I think the work on myself really starts afterwards.
Uh, yes, but you have it already,
You
but
have
you're
it
in the
ready to
moment.
go. But
Right.
once everything's calmed down and everything has sort of found its place,
Yeah.
the work to bring myself back present is begins. To be able to not overanalyze the situation, not be in a
Hmm.
space of, did I do the right thing? Did I do enough? Should I have even done anything? Why is this happening? All that stuff.
Right.
To be able to not be in that headspace and bring myself back, that still requires work.
And so the questions you just articulated are the ones that you would be asking yourself
Typically,
afterward.
yeah, and it's typically what I would ask myself, and that's, I think, in my work is typically what I see other people doing. We love to analyze things and determine if we did good enough.
Uh-huh.
And if we're doing that, we're not present.
Right.
We're then feeding the trauma, we're creating trauma because we're now judging the situation, judging how well we did. And if we deem ourselves as not doing good enough, that's trauma.
Yeah, because we barge in and try to do more, keeping away the people who know better what to do.
Right. And just the, internal judgment of I didn't do good enough, that's very damaging.
How long does that hang on with you? Did
It's
you
on
do
and off.
enough?
It's on and off because I can bring myself present and I can be present, and then maybe 2 hours later, I might feel the thought again. So I have to do it again. So it's more continuous than
Uh-huh.
doing it once. And especially like when you're going to bed, that's when sort of those kind of flashbacks come back in and it becomes almost harder to be present. So at nighttime, going to bed, trying to fall asleep requires even more effort in being present.
Is it fair to say that the people that you referred to without names in the beginning who criticized your belief in success, what the definition of success, is it fair to say that what they're saying is instead of focusing on your piece, you should be looking for accidents to respond to? Not
Indeed.
necessarily, not necessarily car, but political, right? Or
Or you
physical,
should be making sure I'm okay.
making what, yeah, I'm okay, right?
Yeah,
That's your
like
job.
a lot of the time people, hear how I choose to live my life and they get triggered in it because they think I'm judging them.
Uh, Now,
That
would these be a client?
judgment that their life is not good enough.
Would this be a client or would this be a friend?
I think all of the above, and sometimes
Uh-huh.
people that just meet me for the first time and they hear my story and immediately they go into a place of sort of, you know, defense when they hear my story because it becomes whose way is the better way?
Right.
Whose way is
Now,
the right way?
can we circle back to your exuberance?
We can.
Yeah. So again, say if you would, what are you so happy about today?
Um, I'm really happy that I'm here. That I'm in San Cristobal, I'm in Chiapas, I'm in a beautiful home. I'm very grateful for everything that has brought me to this place and that I can sit in a place now where I notice the difference. And I'm very happy that my schedule is full. I get to speak to people that warm my heart
Mm-hmm.
and I have everything I need. And
Uh,
I'm so grateful to be in a position of being aware of the difference. I've been in the space where I've been afraid, where I've been anxious, where I've not
uh,
known which way to go and had to have faith. And I can tell the difference now. And I'm very much sitting in a space of this is good. This is worth it.
Hayley, can you tell us the ingredients of or whatever you carried with you from the past to the present? It didn't happen overnight.
It didn't, faith, number one is faith, is trust. And that's, even still now in me moving forward, is always trusting my path. Because
Mhm.
even now I still have expectations of how I want it to be, or how I want something to turn out. And when it doesn't feel like it's working out that way, I have to bring myself back to trust, back to faith. So there is only one ingredient. It's
Mhm.
the faith in my path, the trust that I have in everything that I am, to be able to say, no, relax, you're going to be okay.
And that will guide you on your further steps?
Yeah. And it is what's guiding me now. It's 100%
Uh-huh.
trust.
Mm.
Every day, every morning, every night, I'm very clear about sort of saying my prayer. And that
Mhm.
involves, I trust my God, I trust my soul, I trust my path, I trust my heart, and I allow it to unfold and evolve as it should.
And you do that prayer, exact prayer,
Every morning,
morning.
every evening.
Uh-huh. We do too, as you know. It's not that prayer, but every morning, we read from the Tao,
Mm-hmm.
and we read from the Wu Wei. Are you familiar with the Wu
Yeah.
Wei? Both of them basically say, inaction. Stop. You can't improve things. Things happen. Uh, and after we do a reading, we sort of figure out, well, the Republicans would like that. Well, the Democrats would like that. Well, it changes. But and then we read the prayer of St. Francis, and at night we hold hands before we eat and give thanks, not for just the food, but for everything.
Everything.
And we've been reminiscing a lot. I have been, about my past and all the people who have contributed to being where I am. It's like looking through a scrapbook
Yeah.
and not feeling rushed. Right? It's kind of nice. The
I
thing
think,
that's not, go ahead, please.
no, carry
No,
on
you go.
with your thought.
Well, I was just going to say the thing that I would love to let go of is the question, what's next? You know, is it your memoir, or are you going to start painting, or you know? So I feel as if, okay, this is all working great. I love my home. I love my garden. I love Ray. Love the dog. But what am I supposed to fill my day with?
I think, as somebody that is hopefully moving through the what next question and letting go of the what next, coming back to the Wu Wei and the Tao, inaction. I think it's important to define inaction. We're not looking to be lazy. We're not looking to sit on the couch and never do anything else again. We're looking for inspired action where we trust our path and we trust our intuition to say, now you move.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at what's next, it's always allowing that inspired action to, now you move. Allow that to be the sort of impetus for what's next. Because when I'm trusting my path, I'm also trusting that everything is happening for me. I'm very aware of all of the millions and billions of synchronicities that are happening every second so that my path can unfold and evolve as it should. So all of that is happening for me. It's happening for you. It's happening for 7.4 billion people. So of course we need some time,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always
Yep.
happening for us.
Yeah.
So
There's
being
a time.
able to relax out of what's next
Mm-hmm.
really is easier for me, because I'm like, regardless of what's next, it's going to be great. It's going to be exactly what I need, and it's going to be just for me. So I can let go. It doesn't mean that I don't have the thought, hey, what about this that you're working on? You haven't worked on it for a while. Where's it going? Of course I have
Mm-hmm.
that thought. But again, for me to come back present is, I'll know when it's time to work on that.
And this is more personal. Uh, the space that you have created for yourself, would it be harder if you were in a couple?
I always think that my decisions to become this life would have been more difficult had I been married, stayed married, and even more difficult if I had children.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is a level of ease to be able to do it single, but I think that that was my path. I think that I went through the extreme difficulty and pain of shedding because my path was do this single, and then perhaps there will be partners and everything else. Um, that being said, I also know a lot of people that as a couple have gone on the path together.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think it's, there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's no um, best way. I think it's everything happens for a reason, and we all have very vibrant and diverse paths. We sometimes just need to relax and accept that we are unique, so we have different looking paths.
A lot of the people we've had on as guests, Hayley, have partners who make the path with them.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Staten, remember Bill,
Yeah.
sexologist? His wife Kathy, he and Kathy are soulmates, and she was part of Soul Force, the group that was challenging right-wing condemnation of gay people. Yeah, so there are a lot of examples of how it can happen.
It can
Right?
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, but again, I'm, acknowledging through my experience, it would have been harder. I think I still would have tried to make the journey.
Mm. What would take you out of where you live? What would make you go someplace else?
Inspired action. And it's very
Okay.
interesting that you're asking this question, because many people are asking me the question, where are you going next?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still in the energy of, I don't know. I'll know November. And that's very difficult for people to get comfortable with too. The only thing that would make me change my location is the inspired action.
And can you describe what that could look like?
Uh, the what
The inspired
the
action.
inspired action. In my experience, sort of the last few times that I've moved, it's always been sort of a month to 2 months before I actually move that I become aware of a location through somebody mentions it, or it's a place that's sort of been on my list. And then there's the awareness, and then there's also just sort of this interest of like, well, let me look into that and see what it looks like.
Mm.
And then it's the ease of it too. All of the places that I found myself in have been very easy moves. I've somehow found a great place that was well within my budget. I've somehow found a good way of getting there that was well within my budget. So there's always been these little things that fall into place that are like almost breadcrumbing. Go
Uh-huh.
this way, go this way. Um,
And when you mentioned November, was that because your lease is up?
my lease is up here December, so I can renew my lease here, or I can choose to go somewhere else.
Uh-huh. Well, I like how happy you are.
It's very interesting how everything is clicked in this place.
Mhm.
And it's a very interesting little place. It's very diverse. There's a lot of problems here. But it's also, I think, the paradox of being on the hero's journey. Great things don't just happen when everything's great. Sometimes great things happen in chaos, and sometimes chaos happens in great things. So everything for me has clicked. I've never been happier like as I am now. I'm in the best shape of my life. My work is the best. Financially, I'm the strongest that I've been since I've been out of banking. And in terms of being present, this is the place where I am most present, most trusting, most surrendering. I say this knowing full well that on Tuesday, just up the block here, there was an armed robbery. I know,
Nearby?
yeah, a block up from where I live.
Oh.
I say this knowing that we are protected by a drug cartel. I know
Mm.
that San Cristobal is on the route for human trafficking. So there's a lot going on here that from an outside, I would really question, like, why are you in San Cristobal?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have to trust that there are certain places in this world that we are called to for a very specific reason. We are invited to, and we have to realize that regardless of what's going on around us, we need to be open to the blessings of where we are. And I think right now, this is a wonderful example of I'm extremely blessed in this little world that I'm in, for reasons that cannot be explained. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm certainly going to be happy.
Well, speaking of enjoying, either the last program or the one before our last conversation, we were talking about dating.
Mm.
Mm.
That.
You have a great laugh, Hayley. I love to make it happen.
Thank you. What are your questions, dear Brian?
Only are you dating?
I don't know if I'm dating.
You don't know. All right. Tell me
Um,
what's going on. I'll tell you whether or not you're dating.
so I definitely have tried to be more conscious and open about my messaging to gentlemen callers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, it's very interesting because we could go for the rest of the hour about my dating life. So there's one gentleman that I met through a dating app, and once we started chatting, he then disclosed that he was in an open relationship. And I, at the time, said, I'm not looking for that. I prefer
Yeah.
to have my, I don't like to share my guy, but I'm happy to be friends. He ended up teaching me a lot about open relationships, very much. I had so many questions. And now, you know, I have said nothing's going to be happening between the two of us. But he is still very much wanting me to change my mind. So I
Uh,
find that very interesting. You know, a lot of the time I'm like, isn't this why you have a girlfriend? Isn't this why you're in an open relationship? You still have that centered person. Why are you? I feel like his expectations is that I should fulfill that role. So that's very interesting to me, regardless of how many times I kind of say, I'm not that person for you. He comes back with very interesting comebacks where I'm just like, that's why you have a girlfriend and I'm not her.
right. He's trying to wear you down with arguments.
I mean, it's been a while. I would have thought by
Yeah.
now he would have given up. It's been over a month. I thought by now he would have moved on to, you know, an open relationship. It should be fluid.
Yeah.
So I'm
Another
learning.
another question for you, going back to the whole issue of moving or not. You talked about, the drug cartel and the human trafficking. Uh, you also told me just before we started that there's going to be a big holiday coming up,
Mhm.
fireworks, etc. On your journey, Hayley, living in different places, do you immerse yourself in the culture
Absolutely.
or
Absolutely.
sit back and watch it?
No, I fully immerse in the local culture to the point where I have very few expat friends. I have
Mhm.
most of my friends are locals.
Did you need to learn Spanish?
I'm learning Spanish,
Uh,
which is very interesting because it is a, you know, not to make excuses, but my life is still 80% English. And
in terms
learning
of the people in the
Spanish
council. Yeah,
when I only need to use it 20% of the time
yeah,
is something that I have to be patient with. Because a lot of the time I'm like, I should know Spanish by now. And then I have to
yeah.
back up. You only speak Spanish 20% of the time, even though you're in a Spanish speaking country.
Hmm. There are a lot of Spanish programs on Netflix. If you have Netflix there.
I try and watch them, but I don't watch a lot of TV. And really what I need is the practice conversing.
Hmm.
But again, that's honestly 20% of my time. 80% is with my clients, my friends who are all English speaking.
Well, even if it takes you, 2 years to learn it, uh, you're learning it for a reason. that you may not even know about.
I may never know. And there's times where I'm like, it should be easier, but I think we just have to really look at the facts of, look at where your time is.
Yeah.
Be real and honest about it. And, going back to the dating, that has been really helpful because I'm only dating local people that only speak Spanish.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm learning through that to pick up more Spanish.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's been really helpful. Like the best thing that's come out of this dating thing, my Spanish has got a lot better.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Some
Yeah,
of us have no ear for language, and some speak 5 languages. I mean, I I I flunked typing because I couldn't get my left hand to operate separately from my right. And I met a doctor yesterday who, well, I knew him, but I talked about it, and he said, I can't either. I can't get this hand. I could never play the piano because I can't do something different with this hand that I'm doing with my right.
I think it's an interesting thing about languages. Like I can get the basics of them very easily, but once they start getting complicated, I'm just like, ooh.
Uh-huh.
The basic greetings and asking for what I need, I can pick up rather quickly, and regardless of the language, like French, Spanish, Italian, Greek, I was able to pick up very easily. But once you start having conversational, I'm just like, okay, this is getting super complicated.
Hayley, do we have time to talk about a different issue?
Yes, please.
Uh, I was thinking about the loss of best friendships, not from death, but because of misunderstanding or
The end of
conflict.
time.
Yeah. Have you had that experience
Yes.
of losing best friends, and then you know that it had to happen, but you are nevertheless sad?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's part of life. And I think it has, for me, the foundation of that is accepting time.
Accepting time.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
For me, that means every one of our relationships has time allotted to it.
Okay.
And when time is up, time is up.
Okay.
And I think it has more to do with karma, it has more to do with energy, it has more to do with the vibrancy and diversity of our paths. That when the time is up, the time is up. And very often we don't agree with that clock.
I had a phone conversation, like a Zoom call, with a guy who I was best friends with in high school, and we've maintained it, but we've never been next door neighbors, right? I think it's harder when you're always with the person. But I like but it doesn't eliminate hurt or pain.
The hurt is really us fighting with time and fighting with the truth of why that relationship came to an end. That nobody breaks our hearts. We do it to ourselves.
By
not accepting the truth of the situation.
Okay.
We want an outcome that is different than what is happening, and we fight it. And that fighting hurts us.
And so if it becomes clear to you that a relationship isn't what it started as and it's losing steam, it occurs to you that the clock is ticking on the end of the.
And I think it goes back to how we started this conversation, is my reliance on faith, on trust that everything's happening for me and for that other person. So this isn't personal. This isn't, God or the universe saying, I'd like you to experience some hurt right now, and I'm going to end this relationship just to have a laugh. It's working for me because I need to be going somewhere better. They need to be going something better at this point in time. It doesn't mean that we don't circle back around later, but just for right now, there's better places for both of us to be going that are not together.
That's good. I mean, I think it's a beautiful description of if you had a bird's eye view of what was going
And, you know,
on.
again, being human and being, you know, very honest with this idea of presence. Does it hurt in that moment? Do I question it? Do I get angry at that other person for not being who I need them to be? Absolutely. But again,
Uh-huh.
the work in is coming back to being present and coming back to the truth of the situation.
Which is that there's a time limit on relationships and that there are things each of you are supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And
And I think
you
it's
can't do it.
important to clarify, you know, that time limit is not the same for everybody in every relationship.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 30 years, sometimes it's a lifetime, sometimes
Uh-huh.
multiple lifetimes. But there is always an end and a beginning because we live in a circular, like it's a circle of life. And
Uh-huh.
we can't avoid the endings. And would we want to say no to beginnings?
So when we reflect on the past, uh, the better glasses to look at it through are those that accept that everything happened as it was supposed to happen.
Everything happened as it was supposed to happen. And if we are truthful about the past, we can see that everything turned out great in the end. May not have felt good, but
Uh-huh.
it turned out good.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, with the past, where we get caught up too, is we look at the past with hindsight. And therein we hurt ourselves because hindsight just means we're using today's information to try and fix the past.
Yeah.
And that's impossible.
We're different people
We're different
than we
people.
were
We don't
then.
have the information that we have today back then. Otherwise, it would have been different.
Yeah.
We can't
Sometimes,
change the past.
go ahead.
I was going to say we can't change the past, regardless of, you know, the idea of time machines and time warps and healing. Healing doesn't change the past. Healing allows us to accept the past.
And healing, I believe, uh, important components of it are blessing the person that you are letting go of or who's letting go of you. That you,
Seeing them with love, sending love.
mhm.
It was brought to my attention, or I was asked this question 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Why haven't you forgiven, and why do you hold so much anger and resentment? And none of that is true because I don't hold, you know, for all of the relationships that have come to their end, I personally don't have anything to forgive. I don't hold any anger. There might be a tinge of resentment, but that resentment is for me to work through. It's not for me to project onto them. So for every one of those relationships that have ended, I make every effort to send love and
Yeah.
every effort to be fully present with. I understand that as hard as this was on me, it was probably hard on you too.
Yep.
And clearly it was for the better because my life is better now. And I send you wishes that your life is better and that you can be in the energy of my life is better.
And I have a tendency to want to go back and tie up a ribbon, right? That, I did these things. I'm sorry that I did them. And I accept the stuff that you did. Well, what stuff did I do? Never mind.
Yeah, it's a
It's
circular
pretty hard.
conversation.
Yeah, because you can't, yeah, your perspective is different. And I do think having gratitude for the people, places, and things, blessing them with love,
Yeah.
and not looking in the rearview mirror.
And I think it raises a very good point too, which when we end a relationship, and then there's this conversation about, like, well, you did this, so I did this.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship can only come back together when both parties have let go of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a relationship can't be healed when one person is still blaming, whether themselves or another person.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's
So we can't we can't heal unless we forgive your behavior, not your own, right?
Both your own behavior and their behavior, and it has to be on both sides.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one.
It's really tough. And again, it's not impossible, because there are relationships that come back together where they've had that moment and now they meet each other as brand new people and the relationship is brand new. And there are also those relationships where a person is always coming back, don't you want to be a part of this? The door's still open to you. Just if you could just apologize for what you did.
Right.
Or if you could just acknowledge everything that you did. If you could just forgive me.
Right. I'm in the story of the prodigal son. You're the prodigal son. I'm the father that in his great heart accepts you back. And they, we're assigning them the prodigal son role when they want to be in the father role of forgiving us. Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people are looking for closure and they look for other people to give it to them. My understanding of closure is that it only comes from us. We don't need other people to get closure.
Part of what happens, I think, even if you're an adult, is that if there's a painful breakup, you bring other people into it to support your position. You tell the story of what happened so you can hear them say, I can't believe that.
Yeah. And you were really hard done by.
Oh, yeah, that's awful. I won't say hi to them when I see them in the coffee shop.
Yeah, my loyalty's with you.
Yeah, yeah. And those are bad seeds. That's being in the basement.
It's interesting that you say that, because part of my journey too has been wondering how that loyalty plays out and how is it so clear. Because in my, relationships that I have ended, and, the biggest and probably the hardest one has been the one with my parents and my family. Immediately, my entire family's loyalty went to my parents. So part of my healing journey has been, how come nobody even reached out to ask me if I was okay? Or, hey, what are you thinking?
Hayley, are you able to move on and not get an answer to that question? Or is it really important to ask your siblings why they weren't there for you?
No, the space and time for me to ask that question does not exist. So I let go of it. And for me, again, when I look at it all, it was difficult, it was painful, it was hard. I didn't understand it. But now that where I am and this life I've created, which is peaceful, I can look back on it and say, I don't need to know. Because if I know, it takes me out of the peace. Now I'm playing in that swim lane, doesn't serve me.
Yeah, you have to let go of the rope, and not, you really have to let go of it, because it's a tug of war your whole life. I was going to give you an example also of siblings. When one sibling as an adult forgives the parents and the other sibling is so angry that they're forgiving the parents, that now you have war between the siblings that thought they were loyal to each other.
Yeah.
How can you forgive them? And
it's just
you do your best.
You do your best. And I think when you reach the place of peace, it becomes non-negotiable. You can't compromise it. So it actually, for as hard as it is to attain the peace, once you're in the peace, it becomes so much easier to say that compromises the peace. No. Like the level of courage dissipates, because it's just like, I'm not compromising this peace.
And step away.
It becomes far, far easier to put those boundaries in. It becomes far, far easier to say that I'm not going to do that. It doesn't.
Don't engage. Thich Nhat Hanh talked about that. It's just, and Dr. Seuss had, the story of the two people who wouldn't move. that it's just best to step out of the way.
Step out of the
Let
way.
it go past you. It's
Yeah,
not personal. It's not about you.
it very
You
rarely
could have,
is.
yeah.
And I think if you can be present, every single message clearly shows you this has nothing to do with you.
Mhm.
This has
Yeah,
everything to do with them and their acceptance of their place and their path. Don't get
right.
involved and
Yeah.
choose your words carefully. You know, don't
Choose your words carefully. Yeah, because you don't want to guilt trip them for not being in the same place you are.
exactly. And you don't also
Sometimes,
want to give false hope.
yeah.
Like
I,
if you have to send a message like if you did this, then perhaps there's a chance. No.
no, because but if you did it and it worked, doesn't mean it's going to work for them,
No.
because your folks might be in a different place than they were with you.
Yeah.
Uh, I find that I often have to just not hear what's going on. When they're talking and my piece is starting to get disrupted, um, changing the subject and offering a glass of water or whatever moves us to a different space.
That's only effective if people are open to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you know a relationship is not ready for you to re-enter it. Because if they're not open to that change in energy, like, hey, let's change the subject, or let's, eat now. If they're not open to it and want to continue on their tangent, there's no relationship there.
Yeah.
No going back into that.
And they better not do that when I invite them for dinner, because I don't want all the work that I put into that meal lost because we're talking about something that everyone's upset about.
Yeah. And I think there's a myth that when you're on the path and you're, find your place of peace, you can be in peace in whatever situation you're in. So it doesn't matter who you're around. I find that to be a myth because I think it always matters who you're around. It always matters what you surround yourself with, regardless of
I,
how much peace you've attained.
yep.
And I think,
I,
even the Dalai Lama overthinks things. I think he even now chooses the people he wants around him. Even now, he's like, nah, I'm not doing that.
so he's changing his behavior
No,
in
I
your
think
mind?
that, we consider him to be one of the most enlightened humans on the planet right now. And I think that, for him, he still struggles with the same human concepts that we do because he's still human.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that he's one of the most spiritual
I
people in the
think that
world?
there's definitely, do I believe he's one of the most spiritual people? I don't know because I've never met him. I do believe that there is a collective wish that he is one of the most enlightened spiritual leaders. Like we should attain to be like the Dalai Lama because he's got everything together and he's figured it all out.
Yeah.
I think we
One,
put these people into guru status onto pedestals that we think that they're inhuman. And we have to remember that the fact that they're still in a human body means that they are still experiencing the human journey.
yeah, I would ask questions as a kid of the nuns. Well, when Jesus was on the cross, sister, if he was God, it didn't hurt him.
I mean,
No,
technically, right?
but he was human too.
He was human too.
Yeah. And if you carry that beyond the cross, Jesus, you know, threw up.
I'm,
he
I mean,
he
Jesus
farted.
went to the toilet too.
Yeah. And that makes him more accessible.
Yeah. I think we need, I would hope that as part of this evolution that is happening, this apparent rise in consciousness, whatever you want to call it, I hope that we get more comfortable being human and we become more accepting of humanness.
Hayley, do you believe, and I agree with you about this increase of awareness in the world, do you think it's going to be enough to counteract what other people are frightened by in the world right now?
I think it is already.
Yeah.
I think our media and our attention is very slanted towards bad things happening, that we are not even open to all of the good things.
Yep.
And I think that the fact that there is still beauty in this world, I think the fact that the majority of us still wake up in peace means that there are far more people in a place of peace than a place of war,
Hate.
hate.
Yeah.
It's just we are not encouraged to pay attention to that other side of the picture. We're just so focused on everything bad that's happening. So I think
Because it's outrageous. I mean,
it's
that's what makes the
outrageous.
headline.
And we are for many of us in sort of the more westernized countries, we are energized by anxiety. We are not energized by peace. So we go where the anxiety is, and that is the sensationalized media.
Mm-hmm.
For many people, for many people that are outside of that, they're incredibly okay. There's
And they
a lot
often
of
can't
peace
believe
in
it.
this world.
They'll ask, what is going on in your country?
Why
What
are
is
when I first got to Mexico, people used to ask me all the time, why are you running everywhere? And I'm like, I have to be on time. And they're like, so what? So what? And I'm like, yeah, but I have to be on time, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's something we have to wait for. It's something we need to acknowledge now, that it's been happening all this time. And the awareness is the acknowledgement that it's happening now. So I think more and more people are becoming aware that there's a whole nother side to this.
Right.
That is happening right now.
And going way back to the beginning of our conversation, that more and more people are learning to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They're learning it from the work they put in, reading books, attending services that enrich their mind.
And I think that there's a natural inspired action to be curious about it. I think when everything looks so chaotic here, there's a certain element of people that will be like, is this really true? And it's just that question that is enough to open the curiosity into, well, what's going on over here?
Mm-hmm. That you're one who asks, is this really true?
I mean, since I was a kid.
Yeah. So you
Always
don't
ask
take
that question of, is that really true?
Yeah. Well, I can understand why there'd be conflict with your
Yeah.
teachers, your siblings, your parents, because you didn't sort of go along to get along.
Right. And nobody wants that obnoxious kid saying, I don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true. Prove it.
You little 4-year-old, what do you know?
Stop what you're doing and prove it to me.
I was spending time with my friends, and they have kids, and what's cool for these kids to say right now, what's trendy, is that's so sad.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we're like, what does a 7-year-old know about what's so sad?
Where are they picking that up, you wonder?
School. So it's either that's so sad, or that's so rare, or that's so cool.
I rather have them say that than did you say that's so rad?
Rare.
Oh yeah, well, rad I think used to be the word. I never understood.
No, now it's cool. That's so cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's back to what I used to say. I'm back in.
It's always a cycle.
Yeah, I like that imagery.
It's a lot of fun to see sort of the generations and certain things being repeated, even though each generation is so different.
Yeah, one of the things that's hitting me, I know we're probably running out of time. but just one of the things that happens for you when you can happen for you when you get older is that you look back and you think, "Wow, that really happened fast." I mean, was it in a minute ago that I was playing with my bicycle? I mean, I was never conscious that, that there was an end to time, that there was an end to my life, that I should be aware of what's happening around me. So, at any rate, I love
No,
with you.
the end of time is infinite because time is always ending and time is always beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, end of Brian McNaught's time. I'm not saying that there isn't enough, the soul doesn't take on another manifestation, probably the Dalai Lama, but so
Yeah.
some person of Hayley will tell everyone that I'm the holiest person.
Well, I think each one of us is the holiest person. I think
Yeah,
right as Brian McNaught is one of the holiest people on this planet.
yeah, all of us.
We're
all of
all
us.
holy, and let's acknowledge the holiness that we are.
And we're all connected.
We're all connected, and
Yeah.
everything is happening for us. And there is far more beauty, there's far more goodness in this world than is reflected on the TV.
Yep.
And
We talk again in 2 weeks, is it?
2 weeks. Yep.
Yep. Okay, well,
It'll
I'll
be
miss
exciting
you.
to see how much time has passed and what we filled in.
Yeah. What's going on in 2 weeks? We'll check in again, but
It'll be a
I've
whole
loved
new
this
world.
conversation. Thank you for being so open to answering questions.
Oh, anytime. It's a
Yeah,
joy.
I think it was a sacred hour for me.
Always. Sacred
Yeah,
moments. I love you dearly. Lovely to
love
see
you.
you. And we'll
Thank
see
you.
you soon.
Good. I love you, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye.